everyone, it's Holmes from Home Storybooks, and today I'm here to discuss with you Call Me By Your Name by Aciman. I have seen the film as well, but I don't think I'll do a joint review just because this review is quite long already, and I'd rather go for quality rather than quantity. Call Me By Your Name is about a 17-year-old named Elio who becomes enamored with his father's PhD student Oliver, who is 24. This is Elio's first queer love and relationship, and it's set in Italy in the 1980s, and it's as tumultuous as it is tropical. It's written as a series of diary entries by Elio, constantly trying to figure out if Oliver is interested in him or not, and if he is, what does that mean for him? I enjoyed the book more for the feelings that it gave me rather than the writing itself. It made me feel closeted, which is something hard to do considering I've been out of the closet for at least 10 years and all my family knows and loves me and my spouse. But I felt Elio. Oh my god. I knew exactly what it was like. I was explaining to my friend Anya, who I was reading it with, that the struggle with queer relationships is first you don't know if you want to be them or you want to be with them. And then like magic, that passage turned up in the book and validated me. Did I want to be like him? Did I want to be him, or did I just want to have him? There it is. A little slice of my queer experience on the page in front of me. What I appreciated about this book was its ability to talk about and elaborate on something which is difficult to discuss in a romance, and that is disgust. Elio is really disgusted with himself for falling in love with Oliver. He doesn't want to be in love with him. In earlier queer relationships, there's such a deep and vast element of shame. It's thick and it's undulating and unrelenting, like the Italian summer, appalling in its heat. We see Elio really struggle with this disgust for Oliver and for himself throughout half of the book. He constantly tries to reinforce the fact that he doesn't need Oliver by sleeping with women. Then he proceeds to tell Oliver so that Oliver will picture him having sex with someone. And Oliver picturing him having sex with someone is as good as having sex with Oliver. Elio is afraid, he's turbulent, he's in turmoil. Falling in love for him, I think, really is an active process that Aciman displays really well. A lot of people refuse to read this book because of the age gap. Elio is 17, Oliver is 24. I totally understand that and accept that that's fine. But I think people are missing out on a more nuanced relationship than they think. When I was 14 and 15, my family and I lived with a queer woman by the name of Valerie, whose very presence strengthened my resolve tenfold. She was in a relationship with a man, and I was never ever romantically interested in her. She's like an auntie to me. But from her I learned so much. Often in our conversations she would interject and ask if I'd read this book, that book, or watched this film. I'd never heard of any of these titles before, but suddenly I had someone who did know them, knew where to find them. For my birthday, she sent me a copy of a textbook on bisexuality and an encyclopedia of famous queer people. I pored over those books for hours. She told me of her trips to San Francisco, where you could go and find the queer community, how there are queer communities in New York, London, Paris, and how they've always been there. She would tell me of the first time she kissed a girl, her first female partner, how not to rely on your crushes to straight girls, how never to sabotage your heart by falling in love with someone who's merely experimenting, quote unquote. No shade on people who experiment with their sexualities, it's all good, but I'm just a really monogamous romantic being and always have been, so it would not have worked out well for me. As a result, few people at school teased me for my sexuality. It was actually teachers of a neighboring Lutheran school that damaged my self-esteem the most. So I was teased more for having red hair than for being queer. I was aggressive in my queerness. If anyone asked me a question about it, I'd ask them accusatory questions. So, Lydia, are you gay? Why? Do you want to ask me out? What's up? I was 14, mad at everything, and ready to fight anyone who came at me. But if someone was actually homophobic, I felt no shame. I refused to feel shame. She taught me not to feel shame. She taught me how to survive. She was a total mentor to me. As queer people, you need to learn to read between the lines, become fluent in subtext, and cling to what you think might mean. And if you think it means what you think it means, then my point is, Valerie gave me access to something that I'd never had before in a family of otherwise straight people. She taught me queer codes, queer literature, and she made queerness normal. And this is what Oliver does for Elio in a lot of ways. Obviously their relationship is romantic also, so it has those elements, but Oliver teaches Elio some key queer things. In one exchange, they talk about how they tried to covertly display their attraction for each other. Oliver says, "I rubbed your shoulder and you flinched, so I assumed you weren't interested." They then spend the rest of the afternoon decoding each other's past actions. Elio's instincts are sometimes right, sometimes wrong, but the key is that he learns from Oliver. Do I agree with their relationship? No. And I don't have to in order to gain something from the book. Instead of feeling free and liberated at his coming out, Elio feels open, exposed, vulnerable. A bundle of electric wires for his nerves, balancing precariously close to water, waiting to be saved. I am reminded of the old donkey who's buried alive in a hole, whose farmer throws dirt on him until he climbs out of the pit. For Elio, coming out of the pit is dirty and humiliating. Aciman has a way of reminding me of queer nostalgia. The time I went to a queer parade and I was closeted, so I hid it from my mother. I'd been there for a few hours with a friend who I adored and was wearing a bright blue leather jacket. Because really, I was terrified and I thought that a blue leather jacket would help. It did, but only a little bit. I was standing in line to get my face painted and suddenly I couldn't stand it anymore. I didn't want to be queer and lie, and so I turned to leave. A drag queen just ahead of me turned around and asked if I was okay. I think she knew, and she'd probably seen it before. So despite the pretentiousness of this book, the constant mentioning of classic authors, texts, musicians, composers, and philosophers, I was emotionally taken to a very interesting place. Of course, the book has its flaws. Aciman's diary-style writing is relentless in its lack of punctuation and run-on sentences. There's a section of the book, The San Clemente Syndrome, which could have easily been cut out. I understood the point of it, but mostly despised the poet character in it who was waxing poetic about his trip to Bangkok. People there were so kind, they all wanted to sleep with you, they were so exotic. And someone had to drunkenly start raving about Nietzsche to get him to shut up, which is like, okay. I understood the point of the scene, but I just didn't care for it at all. My review will be biased because this book conjured up so many feelings, memories, and thoughts that I myself had had. Aciman writes in a genre, the first love coming out genre, that has a lot of books, but this one, it's special, I think. The ending in the book has a lot more closure than compared to the film. It felt like a much queerer ending, and if you've read the book, you know what I mean. It was validating, it was sickly sweet and sentimental, and I'm so, so grateful it exists. When it happened not as I dreamed it would, but with a degree of discomfort that forced me to reveal more of myself than I cared to reveal. That's it for this review. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone!